juxtaposition. As one analyst, David Smith, put it in an article in The Guardian, quote, a loving act of mercy by a father who has already known much sorrow, or a hypocritical political maneuver reminiscent of his great foe. Maybe both can be true. Joining me on the morning show, nationally respected prosecutor and defense attorney and legal analyst Jeremy Rosenthal. Good morning.
Good morning, Bruce.
So, Jeremy, let's start with this. There are those who say, including former Attorney General Eric Holder, that no U.S. attorney would have charged this case given the underlying facts. And President Biden pointed out the only reason Hunter was singled out was because he is his son, and that's wrong. Based on the merits of the case, should it have ever gotten this far?
Hunter Biden committed federal crimes. It's a crime to lie on a piece of paper to get a firearm when you're not legally entitled to it. It's a crime to not pay your taxes. That said, a prosecutor doesn't take an oath to prosecute every single crime. They take an oath to do what's in the best interest of justice. And prosecutors across this country, federal prosecutors across this country, repeatedly and overwhelmingly turn down and reject these types of cases when it comes to prosecuting. They simply have bigger fish to fry. I don't think there's any question that Hunter Biden was treated differently here because of his name and because of his relationship to the president.
Given that context, President Biden said from the start of his presidency he would restore the independence of the Justice Department and would not intervene in this case, repeatedly saying he would not pardon his son. He obviously changed his mind. Does this just pour fuel on Donald Trump's claim that this nation's justice system has been politicized?
Yes and no. I mean, let's be clear about a couple of things here. First off, what we've seen is that Donald Trump is certainly going to make that argument. We know that. So from that standpoint, of course, it's going to pour more fuel on the fire. We also know, and what we've seen, and we've learned, if nothing else, over the past 8 years, is that anything and everything is an accelerant to his fire, if you will. It would be controversial today for President Biden to pardon his son. And if we fast forward 5, 6, 7 months and we've got a brand new Justice Department, we've got a brand new FBI director, both of whom have pledged we're going to get to the bottom of what they characterize as the deep state, i.e. things that Hunter Biden did in 2015, 2016, 2017. That, too, would be an accelerant to this fire. Essentially, if you're Joe Biden, you pick which mountain you're going to die on here.
And you and I will be talking about that in 2 weeks on Politics and Power. But we're raised on this belief that we're all equal under the law. We basically saw Donald Trump escape legal consequences because he won a second term in the White House. We now see Joe Biden pardoning his son. You've practiced law the better part of your life. Do you worry that the bedrock notion of that equality is now eroded?
I don't worry that it's eroded. I worry that people feel that way. And let's be clear about what the rule of law is and what it's not. I don't know anybody who escaped prosecution because they got elected president of the United States, not personally. I also don't know anybody who was pardoned because they were the president's son, not personally. There are tens of thousands of people waking up in Dallas-Fort Worth, where I am, in Jacksonville, where you are, that have legal problems. And the issue is not whether or not some outlier is going to affect their case. It's simply not. The issue is our belief in the system. If we believe that the system is broken, do we ignore speeding laws? Do we put our trash out on the wrong day and not care? Do we dump our motor oil in the creek? That's the rule of law. The rule of law is us respecting the laws that govern us and respecting our neighbors and respecting their rights. If that is eroded, that begins to be a problem. And what's going on is certainly not healthy for the rule of law.
So Donald Trump at one time said that he would probably pardon Hunter Biden if he was sentenced to prison because it would be good for the country. And last night he called Joe Biden's pardon a miscarriage of justice on Truth Social. Do you worry now that both Trump and Biden say that the DOJ has been politicized, that this will continue?
Well, we'll see. Again, you've got a brand new administration coming in. You've got a couple of people in Pam Bondi and in Kash Patel that are going to run your Justice Department and that are going to run the FBI. These people have pledged to dig and dig and dig and get to the bottom of what they characterize as the deep state. Does that include political prosecutions? Again, we'll see. I know that Mr. Patel has pledged that Democrats need to be worried. I don't know what that means. But it doesn't sound like we're heading in the right direction here. Again, going back to the initial quotes and the initial the dialogue that we have over Hunter Biden being pardoned. I mean, this is a tremendously complicated task, which goes beyond politics and goes to the fundamental of your family, father and son. So again, really extraordinary legal events and national events.
So this question I'm going to ask you now is something we'll explore more in 2 weeks on Politics and Power. But I do have to ask you, we know that Donald Trump vowed to enact retribution, and you mentioned this a second ago, against those who investigated him. If he does, and that means further weaponization of the DOJ, could the system be irretrievably damaged in the eyes of the American public, and at what cost?
Again, going back to the rule of law goes to our belief, our perception, the values that we inject into these laws. You could have a judicial system, an executive branch, a legislative branch in any country in the world. It works better here because we believe in it. And our system of justice works the best because we respect our laws. Not saying other countries don't, I'm sure they do. But anything and everything that goes to erode our belief in those principles, in those foundations of our country hurts. So these things, again, are certainly not healthy. To what degree do they undermine it? Again, only time will tell.
Time will tell. But in the meantime, what I'm hearing is you're saying that we have to keep the faith. Jeremy Rosenthal, I appreciate you. Thank you.